going to show how to make a triangle grid using Affinity Photo's procedural texture filter. This pattern is based on a Blender texture by Wannes Malfay. I'll put a link to his video in the description for this video. His work, in turn, was based on the Book of Shaders, although I've had to modify it quite a bit to get it to work in Affinity Photo. The first step is to set up a coordinate system that is in the shape of a parallelogram. And so each of these, if you combine two of these triangle shapes together, you could imagine that as a parallelogram. Then I cut each of these in half, color one of them black and one of them white, and then I'm able to put a little coordinate system inside each of these triangle shapes. To get started, I'll start with a new document. I'll set it to 1024 by 1024 pixels and make sure it's in RGB mode. I'll create that and I'll fill it with black. I will add a new procedural texture live filter. I'll add a single real input A. I'll call that scale. I'll set that up to 4. And I'll add a single equation and assign it to all 3 channels. I'll set that to start out with a variable v0 equals vec2 of rx comma ry times a divided by h. So first I'm going to then do a variable v equals fraction of v0. Like that. So I have my series of repeating squares. Now I'm going to convert these into a parallelogram shape. So the easiest way for me to do that is over here where I have ry, I'm going to add on rx divided by 2. And there I have my parallelogram shape. They aren't equilateral triangles, but they're sort of close. To check this, I drew an equilateral triangle using Affinity Designer and pasted it on here, and I can see that it's not an equilateral triangle yet. So I need to do some tweaking on this to get it to be exactly the right shape. For an equilateral triangle, if I set the base of the triangle to 1, then the height of the triangle, and I have this one sort of turned on its side here, the height of the triangle will be the square root of 3 over 2. So I know I need to use the square root of 3 in there and somehow get 2 in here to get this to work out. It turns out that I need to multiply x by the inverted form of that because, you know, as we scale things they get smaller. So I'll multiply this by 2, divide by the square root of 3. And then I also have to adjust this x value, and what it turns out I need to adjust that by is to divide by the square root of 3. Now my equilateral triangle is perfectly aligned with this grid, so I know they are the right shape. Now I want to black out one of these triangles and leave the other one white, and I can do that with the step function. And the way I'm going to use that is to look at this, say, okay, this one is more green and this one has a greater amount of red. In this case, I'm going to be using the step function as a less than function. So I'll see which of these is less than the other, and one of them I'll color black and the other one I'll color white. And so to do that, I take step of v.x comma v.y. And there's my triangular grid. I want to color these so that each corner of the triangle will have its own color, and that will fade out as you move across the triangle to the far edge. I'm going to delete my step function for now and look at the coordinate system. The Book of Shaders describes how to set this up as a coordinate system. So in this case, I'm going to have 3 different variables for coordinates. And so I'm going to use all 3 colors. So I'm going to create a variable v1 equals vec3 of v.x, v.y, and I'm going to use v.y minus v.x. So that looks like that. Now it looks like the red is up in this corner and it fades smoothly over here. The other 2 I'm not so sure about, so I don't know that that did what I wanted it to do. So I just experimented with this a little while until I found something that worked. The first element, v.x, is fine, and then for the second component of this vector I used v.y minus v.x, and then for the last one I used 1 minus v.y. And that looks like that. Okay, so I can see that this corner is nice and green, this corner is nice and red, this corner is nice and blue, and then it fades out as you move across this shape. Alright, so I have my first set of coordinates. Now for my second set of coordinates, I'm going to do variable v2 equals vec3, and this one I also just experimented with it until I got something that worked. 1 minus v.x, comma, v.x minus v.y, comma, v.y. Like that. Let's look at that one. So it sort of looks like that. Notice they almost look like little boxes here, which we could explore later. Now I'm going to put both of those coordinates together into a single formula. So I will call that one variable v3, and this will be the final coordinate system. It's equal to v1, this v1 coordinate system, times my step of v.x comma v.y, and then plus my v2 times step of v.y comma v.x. So you can see each corner is a different color, and then it fades out as you travel across this distance. So what can I do with this? Well, the first thing I'm going to do, I'll create a new equation. I'm going to copy this and paste it down here. And I'm going to turn these off and then turn these on. And one of the things I could do is just take the length of the vector v3. Doesn't have much contrast. I could multiply by 2, subtract off 1. That gives me a little more contrast with this. So there's that shape. Okay, another thing I could do is to add a new equation. I'll turn off the alpha. I'll copy this equation and paste it down here. Let's see, I'm going to turn these values off and these values on. I'm going to delete the length function and replace it with max of v3.x, comma, v3.y, comma, v3.z. Copy and paste this one down here. Let's try the, I'll turn these off and turn these on, and let's try the min. Okay, and that's a little dark. I'm just going to multiply it by 2, and I get this pattern, which is sort of nice. Now I could, I'm just going to stick with that one. I'm going to add an adjustment to that. Gradient, I'll use the default gradient, and I'm going to make this one black, take out that one, and I'll just make this one red, and I have that pattern. if I add a lighting effect to this, I can get it to look something more like this, which is pretty cool. The next thing I'm going to do is to add another equation. I'll copy this one, paste it here, and I'm going to set up a type of triangle grid graph paper. Okay, then I'm going to add two 0 to 1 sliders. I will call them E1 and E2. Move these down a little. Then I'm going to use a smooth step of E1, comma, E2, comma, v.3.x. And I'm going to multiply that. And I'm going to copy this whole thing and paste it in 2 times. And delete the multiplication symbol on the last one. I'll change this one to a y. And this one to a z. And I've got something like that, but if I bring these down, I can make it into a grid. And so I'm going to change I'm going to bring my gradient here. I'm going to change my gradient now, and I'll make this white, and I'm going to make this color sort of a light blue color, like that. So now I have sort of a graph paper that has either an isometric grid graph paper or a triangle grid graph paper, however you want to look at it. So I really enjoyed seeing the examples that some of you have been adding to my videos. Please post more examples of things that you figured out how to do with this, or any other examples that you have. Let me know if you have any other comments or questions, and thanks for watching.